Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust for September 6, 2011. The first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of our August 9th meeting. These have been distributed to the trustees in advance. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes as sent out? Approval?
Second.
Thank you. Have a motion made and seconded to approve the minutes. Please cast your votes. And the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. The third item on our agenda is the ratification of some payments, and there's a fairly lengthy list. They're all associated with the downtown TIF 8. Are there any questions on any of the projects were listed there? They vary widely in amounts. The low one I found was about $56, and they go up to over $600,000. So there's a wide variety of projects here. Does the staff anything want to say about these projects?
No, they're just part of our projects that are under construction.
And as you remember, probably, that we're just sort of a conduit for this money. We just have a significant interest in it, but it's strictly as a vehicle. Chair will entertain a motion to ratify the payments.
So moved.
Okay. Motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the claims are ratified. Now we have some items for individual consideration. The first one, item A, resolution authorizing and directing the general manager and or his designee to negotiate an economic development agreement for subsequent trust and city council consideration with Continental Resources. I understand we have a presentation on this one.
Yes, we do. We have Mr. Hart from Continental Resources is here to speak to the trust this morning. This project is to create 461 new to Oklahoma jobs in Oklahoma City over the next 7 years. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Hart.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time today. I thought it made sense, although a lot has been written about our company over the previous few months, if I spend a few moments introducing Continental to you and use that as a segue into a discussion of our growth plans over the next 7 years. Continental is a large, well-established independent oil and gas company, a rapidly growing company. We contrast somewhat from the energy companies in Oklahoma City in that we focus on crude oil. The majority of the companies in our industry obviously focus on natural gas. Our focus is on crude oil. Our largest resource, our largest play is the Bakken play, which is in Montana, in North Dakota. This is a massive play. We're the largest acreage holder in it with 901,000. We believe the extent and size of the play to be approximately 9 million contiguous acres of crude oil production. So it's a very large play. It's early in the play. We've only drilled about 15% of our acreage. So it's really the catalyst, if you will, for a lot of our growth, coupled with the Anadarko-Woodford play, which is from basically Watauga down to Chickasha, which is a earlier stage play, but there's a significant amount of growth with each of those. Lots of companies come in and they talk about growth, and they look at it from a perspective point of view, what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it. We've been doing it, and we're at a state to where, in order to accelerate that, the impetus to relocate our company to a larger metropolitan area was upon us. Continental, as an example of that, exhibited historical growth. This most recent quarter, the second quarter of June 2011, we grew production in that quarter 29% over production in the comparable quarter in the previous year. So you can put that in various industry terms for other industries, be it cars or widgets, but basically you grew your base business 29%, almost a third. That's the exhibition of the growth, but the real acceleration of that growth is to continue into the future. For 2011, our stated guidance to the street that we've been consistent on for almost a year now is that we'll grow 36 to 39%, 2011 versus 2010. We're well on track for that growth. The second quarter was an example. You'll see a continuation of that through the remaining 2 quarters this year, as we continue to accelerate. Again, to the history, the production tells itself. Our stated goal for the company is to triple the size of the company. 2009 is the base year to 2014. We intend to be 3 times our size. If you look at our history, we've come close to that already. 2006 to now, we're about 2.5 times what we were then. So we've done it before, and we're continuing that. I spoke to the Bakken earlier, and I spoke to our total company production, 29% to 29%, or quarter to quarter, 29%. The Bakken by itself generated growth of 51%. We're right at 25,000 barrels a day by ourselves in that play today, and it rapidly accelerating. That leads to what's left. What's the future? Well, continuing on, you see the reserves, oil and gas reserves. That's a portion of what you've got in the ground. We believe what we've got in the ground yet to be produced is far in excess of this. But the way it's categorized under the reserve rules, you're only looking at a certain that's proved. As we continue to drill, we've only drilled about 15% of our acreage there. We'll continue to book incremental and additional reserves on top of this. So those numbers will grow, and the size of the company will grow significantly. That growth brought us to a point where, due to primarily hiring needs, the need to hire sizable quantities of highly skilled technical resources, it brought us to a point to where we were compelled to seek other headquarters locations. We looked, I'll be honest, we looked at a variety of options. I don't want to name the specific cities, but there are other cities that are large energy centers that are more central to our location, or some of our assets, that made a lot of sense, and we considered all of those. Your consideration was important to us because this is a very costly and difficult and time-consuming initiative. One question we continually get is, why would you ever move a $12 billion company? It's because you want to be a $30 billion company, and it's the growth and the filling in the resources that you need for that. Now, I said earlier that our goal is to be 3 times the size that we are today. I'm a visual person, so it helps me to put that in a very visual point of view. I'm also a finance person, so I did use numbers. But 2009, what was Continental? We were approximately 400 employees. We had a market cap of about $7 billion, and we had production of about 13.6 million barrels of oil equivalent a year. So what does tripling that mean? Well, you can do math, obviously, but to the visual, it means a company in 2014 that has a head count of 1,000 to 1,500 employees. It means a company that has 41 million plus annual production, BOE, million barrels of BOE production a year. That's sizable. Put that in revenue terms, that's $3 or $4 billion of revenue. It means a company that's continuing to expand and grow. Our goal as a company is to be an investment-grade credit. If you look at our credit fundamentals now, they map to those levels, save the size of the company. We're filling in the blanks on the size as we grow in a smart, prudent, step-by-step, educated way. So our intent and our goal and what we're moving towards is to build a large, self-funding, sustainable, sizable E&P entity, a legacy company, if you will. So why Oklahoma City? Again, we looked at a variety of options. We're from Oklahoma. We like Oklahoma. We're pleased that we have an opportunity to stay in a growing energy center. We're pleased that our crude oil focus, we believe, adds to and complements that energy center. And we're pleased that you will consider our incentive. This total move, we expect the move to cost $15 to $25 million on top of the capital cost that we've previously incurred of $24 million. So your consideration in that is a crucial point to us in the establishment and growth of our company, and we do appreciate your consideration. The things that Oklahoma City has done over the last 10 or 20 years, I grew up in Oklahoma, So I know what happened in the 80s, and I also know the recovery that's come out of that, and it enables companies like ourselves to stay in our home state, so we're very pleased with that. Thank you for your consideration.
Are there any questions from the trustees?
Just wanted to go over just a couple of other some of the details of this. Again, they plan to create about 460 new jobs to Oklahoma City, and the average compensation is estimated to be about $165,000 a year. Again, these are very high-paying, quality jobs being added to the Oklahoma City economy, and they do represent an increase over and above the jobs that Continental had in Enid, because as you all, I'm sure, remember, we have a no poaching policy that's a part of our strategic investment program.
We are very sensitive to Enid. We're managing ourselves in a prudent, thoughtful way. So along with the city, we've been very cognizant of that. To clarify one point, if I may, the 461 jobs have an average salary of approximately $131,000. That's excluding the 255 headquarters-type jobs that will be moving also, myself, Harold, others. If you factor in the total company, it gives you a company in year 7 of about 700, 750 employees, and factoring in that other 255 gives you a higher salary number. But that's been excluded for this calculation, and we've excluded the head count that was in place on the day that we made our announcement also. We want to be very clean and clear on this. We also don't want any poaching.
So based on those kinds of statistics, they'll qualify for about a $7.2 million strategic investment program incentive based upon the parameters that you all have adopted for the program. So.
Larry?
Yeah, just two questions.
Yes, sir.
Talking about the poaching, did Continental Resources come to Oklahoma City on their own, or did Oklahoma City send emissaries up to Continental to try to encourage you to come?
Continental came to Oklahoma City. The city had never reached out to us in the past. As I'd indicated, we looked at a variety of options, and an asset that fit us came available here, and we began conversations with the city on a no-name basis in July of 2010 related to the potential for incentives. But prior to that, there was no contact with the city, and we made the initial contact.
I think that's very important that people out there realize that they came, and so they are an Oklahoma City company right now, and as such are eligible to increase their payroll over their base and be incentivized for that. The second question is, should your growth even go faster, Kathy, what happens? Is there a cap on the number of employees, or if they were to add employees during this period of time even faster than what these projections say, would there be additional incentives or not?
The cap is at the $7.2 million or whatever's in the final agreement that we reach with Continental. Theoretically, under the policy, if they add more than another 50 employees, they could come back for additional incentives, but that would be up to the trust to decide at the time if they wanted to do that. I mean, we haven't had that happen yet, so it would be new territory for us.
But that is a possibility if their growth, and that 50 is the, so if they added more than 50, they could come back and say, hey, we've exceeded our original thing, and we think we're entitled to some additional incentive.
And I'd have to say, I think that one of the other parameters that we've always placed on these kinds of incentive applications is that they have to have a decision to make about where those employees are going to go. Like if they were to locate in another city instead of Oklahoma City. Let's say they wanted to open a new business unit or some new operation, and they were going to add employees to do that. They would have to make a decision between some other location in Oklahoma City, and this acts as a deal closing fund. So, I mean, we'd have to really look at it if that time came in the future.
Ollie?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point that this is not an entitlement. They're not entitled to the incentive. They may qualify to ask for an additional incentive, but it's not an entitlement type program.
That's what I was trying to...
Are there any other questions? If not, thank you very much for your presentation. Good luck in your growth things, I think. It's
Thank
very
you.
exciting to hear about it.
It's going very well. We're hiring rapidly. We have 73 people in Oklahoma City now, and we're at about 240 full-time in Enid with an additional 33 temporary that will convert to full-time at some point in the future once we relocate. So it's moving rapidly. We've added about 29% to our head count since January of this year. So
Thank you very much for
Thank you, sir.
selecting Oklahoma City. We
Thank you.
really appreciate that.
thank you.
Okay. And thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is Project 180. I'm sorry. We need to make a motion.
I move approval.
Second. Oh.
Look a second. Everybody's excited about this. I can see me. I wanted to get the deal done.
moving right along.
Yes, so they can't change their mind. Anyway, we have a motion made to authorize the resolution to negotiate the contract. Are there any further discussion or questions? Please vote. And it passes. So, John, we did it right this time. So, I just in a hurry to... Item B, now can we go to that?
Yes.
Okay, is a Project 180 construction status report, and who's going to deliver that report?
Mike Clark with the Public Works Department is here to give us a status report on Project 180.
Mike, you might start out with a map of how to get to City Hall. It would be...
Thank you very much for allowing us to be here today. We've provided several photographs to serve as guide points for our progress report. The first section of photographs is from what we call Package 1. That's the area around Myriad Gardens and Chesapeake Arena. And the first photograph is the intersection of Reno and Robinson looking to the west. You'll have the Myriad Gardens there on your north, and it gives you a view of the center median that runs from Robinson out to Dewey. The next photograph is the same intersection but looking to the east, so you're looking at the area between the Cox Center and Chesapeake Arena. You'll notice that some of the standard streetscape amenities are not shown in this area, things like a center median or even trees along the south side of the road. That was due to a request from the Thunder to facilitate the activities that they put on in Thunder Alley during the basketball season. I will tell you that there are some preliminary drawings that are underway for the plaza area there at the arena that will kind of tie that area into the things that are happening around it, and that is projected to be a future project. The next photograph, again, goes back to the intersection of Reno and Robinson, and it looks north. So you have the Cox Center on your east and the Myriad Gardens on your west. And again, you see a center median. In this particular project, that median runs from Reno up to Sheridan. Package 4 picks up the median at Sheridan and takes it onto Main Street. And then the last photograph for Package 1 is out at the west end of the project. Again, this is Reno, right about Walker. And you're able to see the amenity zone that has the trees, and in some areas will have benches and trash cans. You also see a light fixture there. And then you have the sidewalk or walking surface behind that. The completion status for Package 1, they are currently working on their punch list, and they anticipate full completion by the third week of September. The next photographs are for Streetscape Package 2. This is the area up around the bombing memorial. And you're on McGee here. You're able to see the amenity zone at the federal courthouse. Again, the marshals asked to not have any trees in this location for security reasons. We did go ahead and put the tree pits in with infrastructure to support trees if that view ever changes, and in the meantime they'll be used as planting beds. You can also see the bike lane in this photograph. If you look out in the driving surface, the kind of darker gray stripe of concrete there, throughout downtown, any streets that have a dedicated bike lane, The designers have used the colored concrete to communicate to the bicyclists where they belong and to communicate to the drivers where they can expect to see bicyclists at. The next photograph shows benches and trash cans. Even though this is package 2, this is a standard installation detail, so you can get a feel for the quality of the amenities that are being installed. The next photograph is on Harvey, so it's along the west edge of the memorial. And what I'd like to point out here, again, you see the amenity zone and then the sidewalk behind it, but then you see the existing condition that we matched there at the memorial. It proved to be a difficult situation, but the contractor was able to match that existing condition. And then the last photograph for package 2 is really in the same area. It's just looking from the north to the south. What I'd show you here, if you notice under the trees in this photograph, you have a tree grate. The previous photograph on the other side of the street, you had planting areas under the trees. Again, the designers did that to communicate kind of different things in different areas. Ultimately, there were 3 different treatments used under trees. There were the grates, there were plantings, and then there was decomposed granite. The completion.
Mike, may I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
The circumference on the tree grate, will that allow for that growth of that species over the time?
It will, and those can be knocked out as the tree gets larger as well. So that was provided for. The completion status for package 2, we have an issue that we're looking at the BOK Plaza right now, but with the exception of that, they have completed their work and they are currently working on a punch list as well. So the majority of the work, with the exception of BOK, it will be finished this month as well. The next photograph starts the section for Streetscape Package 3. This is Main and Walker looking back to the west. You can see that the paving has been completed on the north side of the street, and at the time this was taken, the paving had just started on the south. At this point, all the paving and the drive surface has been completed. We anticipate that the sidewalk and amenity zone there in front of Montgomery and ultimately like Trattoria Restaurant, that will be finished by the 23rd of this month. But again, you can see there will be a median in this section of roadway as well. And I might point out as well, the Montgomery is an area that they actually had a basement on both sides of the building. So in its original configuration, their basement lid was actually the top of the sidewalk, so you were walking on their basement. To be able to match the grades that we needed to, we have actually rebuilt the basement lid on both the north and the east side of the Montgomery. The next photograph is Sheridan and Walker looking to the south. This particular section of roadway has been completed for some time. The section just north of that, so from Sheridan up to almost Colcord, we've got a couple of obstructions with utilities right now, but that is moving forward. Package number 5, which is currently in design, it hasn't gone out to bid, but that will tie on there at Colcord and will go north to Kerr. And then the area north of Kerr has been deleted from Project 180 due to a Board of Adjustment appeal. So there will be efforts made to make that two-way traffic to match the rest of Project 180. Kind of as a reminder, when we finish Project 180, from 6th down to Reno, all the streets with the exception of Couch and Colcord will be two-way traffic. And then the last photograph from Package 3, this is actually at California and Dewey, and I included it just so you could see the accessible ramp. That is the condition that is being created throughout Project 180, but that was just a good look at that so you could see what's being created. The completion status for Package 3, we expect it to finish up just right before Thanksgiving. One of the longer lead times with Package 3 is actually the basement at 420 West Main, the city building across the street. And then I included photographs from the Myriad Gardens, and you guys have seen a lot of it, so I tried just to show you some things that were kind of coming online right now. The first is the restaurant. The curved glass has been installed in the restaurant, and it is moving towards completion. We expect it to finish up about the 19th of September, and at that point it would be ready for the foundation to work with an operator on. But it is really just a very unique architectural feature, and I think it complements the gardens well. The next photograph is of the children's play area, and kind of one of the centerpieces of it is the storytelling deck there in the center. But you can see the various play structures. It's got a rubberized play surface, just really a nice area for children. And then the last photograph from Myriad Gardens is of the dog release park. And kind of the things to point out here, again, it's fully fenced, a combination of decomposed granite and antibacterial artificial surface. And it's a little bit tough to tell, but in the stone walls there at the background, there are multiple water fountains for the dogs down at their area. There has been a grand opening set for October 15th for the gardens, and the contractors that are working there are moving forward to meet that target. Are there any questions that I can try to answer for you?
Mike, thank you very much. Other questions of Mike? Do you feel your schedule is pretty accurate?
At this point, we do.
And what time, when will you be completed? So we.
Well, the Myriad Gardens will be ready for the grand opening on the 15th of October, and then Streetscape Packages 1 and 2 are both projected to finish this month, late in the month, and then Package 3 will be just before Thanksgiving.
Okay. And so in a year from now, we'll have all this done, Mike?
I can't promise you that.
There are more packages.
I know it.
But Package 4 that you guys are going to look at today, the date on that is June of 2012, and then we do anticipate that there will be future work beyond that. So there is more to come.
Okay. Well, good luck, Mike, and thank you very much. Is there any other questions or comments staff would like to make? Okay. The next item, item C, is associated with the streetscapes downtown. And it's a new project. It was bid, and I wanted to call your attention to the fact that the engineer's estimate was almost $13 million, and the low bid was almost $11 million. So we got a good deal, hopefully, unless we have a significant number of change orders, and that always happens, it seems like. But we're starting off on the right foot with this being below what the engineer's estimate. Are there any questions on item C? Any staff would make any comments?
No, just that this is Package 4 that Mike mentioned during his presentation, and they have already started some of the work on this package in front of, along Hudson, and they're already underway, so hopefully we'll be able to meet all of our deadlines.
The chair would entertain a motion to ratify.
So move it.
Second.
A motion made and second. Is there any further discussion or questions? Cast your votes, and it is approved. Thank you very much. Item D is a change order, just like we talked about a minute ago. And so we're going to pay for this in little pieces as opposed to a bid type thing. Are there any comments from staff on item D?
Just that this change order is related to the infrastructure improvements that we did for the outlet mall.
Is construction complete?
If you recall, the construction on the outlet mall, the most significant was the adding the additional street that we funded, along with all the traffic improvements. Those are complete. Right now, the drainage under I-40 is well underway, so.
If you all haven't been out there, it's quite an interesting place to visit. 161,000 of your best friends were out there the first 3 days it opened. And so it was an immediate success, and hopefully most of those people are from out of town. We'll have to wait and see how that works out.
What was the, on amendment number 7, background, left turn lane was added to the southbound Council Road for access to an existing business. What might that existing business have been?
We can check and find out for you. I can't recall.
Any further questions or discussion? Chair would entertain a motion to approve item D. Somebody, please. We have to...
So move.
Second.
Found out it was
Okay, Brahms is okay. I'm not sure it's healthy, but it's an interesting topic. Anyway, we have motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on item D? Please cast your votes, and it is approved. Okay, item E. This is one concurrence with the Water Utilities Trust, and it pays for some trees that were damaged during the project. Are there any questions on item E? Staff, any comments? It's one of the least expensive projects we've had in a long time. Is there anybody who would like to approve this? Make a motion to approve it?
So move it.
Okay, motion made and second. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes, and the item is approved. Thank you very much. Item F is a report by the Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation, and as you know, that's an arm of the chamber that we use in the city to do economic development work for us. Robin, you're going to make the presentation.
Good afternoon. Robin Roberts-Krieger with the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber, and I will be referencing the booklet packet that you have in your packets provided by Brent. I'm also going to pass around one copy of the Velocity. For the record, this is a totally online magazine. It never was intended to be printed out, but I thought for purposes of today, at least I would have it sent around so you can kind of get a feel for what this looks like. I'm pleased to tell you that we had a very good 2010-2011. Unlike many places in the country, again, Oklahoma City and Oklahoma's economy seems to be bucking the trend. I'm going to talk a little bit in sections A and B. I'm going to not talk about the narrative. If there's questions specific to the narrative, I'm happy to address those. In the packet, the portfolio packet that you received, in addition to the Velocity magazine that I'm sending around, you have the new bioscience tabloid that we produced for our big conference, several retail brochures, and Allison Oshel is going to come up after I speak and make a few comments on the retail program, the new data sheet with our facts and figures for Oklahoma City, an executive summary of our marketing plan, which, by the way, was not, again, the marketing plan and the marketing was not funded with city contract. We wanted to include it because it's so important to the overall work that we do. And then also the West Coast marketing initiatives. We did not ever have a chance to give you all of the ads, so those were included in your packet as well. If you go to Section A, that is really our performance measures and metrics for this last year. And there were only a couple areas where we were not successful. For the most part, we were not only successful, we had a couple of home runs this year, which is pretty exciting. For example, if you go down the list, 15 site visits was our goal. We had 23, lots of projects, much more successful than we anticipated. With our web presence, our Vice President of Marketing and Communications, under her guidance this year, we completely redid the economic development website at the very beginning of this fiscal year. We'd hoped to increase and track the users to the site by 10%, and we had a 64% increase. So we knew we needed to update the site, and wow, it really was useful in many ways. And it also was launched just before a couple of large announcements like the Boeing recruitment, and we know that a lot of the folks being relocated utilized aspects of that site as well. With regard to recruitment materials, successful on all counts. And we talked a little bit about the campaign, that while it wasn't using city contract money, we wanted to make sure we made a note of that. We had a 25% goal of meeting with our targeted industry cluster companies this year for business retention and expansion, and we were at 70%, partly because we have so much growth in energy, in aerospace, in biosciences, et cetera, which are all targets. We also had hoped to meet with 250 companies in the Oklahoma City area, and we met with 330. So again, it was a very active and aggressive year. And it's a good sign that when we call on those companies, they take those meetings, they see value, and we always make sure they know that the city is a partner in our business retention and expansion efforts. We also, in entrepreneurship, started a new program this year. We have that plan together. We've hosted several conferences and trainings for those new high-tech-based companies and entrepreneurs. That was also successful. Bioscience section, I'm on page 3, section A. Bioscience, again, we had a very successful conference and meetings throughout the year. Again, we exceeded our goals there. Also raised more in sponsorship than we ever had in the past, so that was good news. And that's also an indicator that the bioscience sector finds great value in those efforts. Again, research, some people find it a little dry, but we had a good year in research, achieved all those metrics as well. Reputation management, again, a great year there. The only area we were just slightly under our goal, we were hoping our national story score averages would be 18 or higher. We came in at 17.4. We just missed that one, and the local goal was only 0.2 off. So again, a lot of stories pitched, a lot of stories placed, so we were overall very pleased with that. I'm going to skip over the retail section on page 7. Allison will be covering it, and draw your attention to section A8, how we did for the year. For 2010-11, there's only one metric we didn't achieve, and we were so close, it pained my heart. We had 6,000 jobs as our goal, and we came out at 5,780, so we missed that slightly. But in all other categories, very successful. Again, you're going to see some fairly large capital investment numbers, and that really, in large part, has to do with a lot of our existing companies that are making very large capital investments in their companies, companies that's making $60 million investments, just one company, upgrading equipment, et cetera. So that's one of the reasons you're seeing such large numbers there. So that's overall my comments. I think I'd like Allison Oshel to come up, talk a little bit about retail, and then we can certainly answer any questions you might have.
Rob.
Allison?
Good afternoon. Allison Oshel with Greater Oklahoma City Chamber. We've got 5 metrics that we measure for you under this contract, and rather than go over those which are in front of you, I thought I might share with you some internal metrics that we measure that maybe tell a little bit bigger story about the success that we're having with retail recruitment strategies in Oklahoma City. We track not only contacts with retailers and developers, which is the metric we measure for you, we also track contacts with brokers. Unique contacts in 2010, and we measure by calendar year, incidentally, were 172 of those 3 categories: retailers, brokers, and developers. In calendar year 2011, so far, we've already had 255 unique contacts, which is already 150% of last year. Cumulatively, when I talk to Whole Foods and I talk to them each month of the year, I count that 8 times, whether or not I talk to them 10 times in a given month. Cumulatively, we've had, in calendar year 2010, 363 contacts, whereas this year so far we've had already 546 contacts. Again, 150% increase over last calendar year. Those retailers that were directly recruited or assisted by the Chamber since 2007, which is when this program began, totals about 23. About half of those are local retail. I'm not counting the 87 outlet mall tenants, which we certainly did actively recruit and assist. The greatest example of what we've done with the outlet mall is to help them with their marketing. Our research and marketing, which is done by Robin's capable research team and Cynthia Reed's marketing communications team, really is what the outlet mall used to try and do their recruitment. And they opened at 100% occupancy, which I'm told is the first time in history that an outlet mall has opened at 100%. We started this program, like I said, in 2007, and we didn't have another city that we could mimic, so we sort of made it up as we went along. I'm happy to report to you that we have been contacted just this year by Sirius, California, Wausau, Wisconsin, the state of Vermont, the cities of Tulsa, Duncan, and Lawton here in Oklahoma, asking us to help them with setting up their own recruitment strategies. So I feel like what we're doing must be resonating throughout the country. Just briefly, my salary has always been paid for through this contract. I'm the only one at the Chamber whose salary is paid through city funds, reimbursed, I should say. But including myself, the management marketing team, and the research team, we've thus far spent over nearly 3,000 hours in staff hours. And if you do the math, 2,080 hours is a full-time employee. So we will end up with about the equivalent of 2 full-time persons at the Chamber assisting in the retail recruitment efforts. Last time I was before you, I talked about our upcoming International Council of Shopping Centers conference, which was in May. We had booked 24 meetings at that conference. We ended up with several more ad hoc meetings totaling 48 in a 3-day period. We have since followed up with each of those 48 contacts and, in fact, have sent several leads to 79 members of our local brokerage community to follow up and try to find some sites for mostly what ended up being fast casual restaurants, but we did get some other solid leads as well. So I'll end there and allow you all to ask questions.
Allison, thank you very much.
Oh, I did want to say briefly, I put in front of you before the meeting started one thing we did this year that may have resonated bigger throughout the country than and we can't take any credit for it other than just having gone out and insisted that some of the national tracking agencies that track retail on a national basis, and they report to Wall Street Journal and other publications, were reporting that Oklahoma City was one of the worst retail markets in the country by way of vacancy in regional malls. And we were able to convince several of those tracking companies to remove Crossroads Mall from their survey, which now puts us in a top tier of vacancy nationwide. And so I put in front of you the retail snapshot that shows you that when you remove Crossroads Mall from the total retail, we actually track very well with U.S. average. So,
are there any questions of either Robin or Allison? Yeah, Frank.
Are you getting more inquiries from companies in California?
On the retail side or overall? I would say, rather than inquiries, I'll say interest. We actually have a contract consultant in the California market who's based out there, who is doing a lot of the pre-qualifying of companies, and we have had multiple trips by Mike Ogan and our recruiting team out to California. When we go out there, we already know there's a project, so there is a lot of interest. More in Southern California, but some in the Bay Area as well, so we are working that market, yes.
Second question. With the low employment number here, do we have a program to try to get the word out there's jobs available? Are you seeing people move here to take advantage of the opportunity of the low employment?
I think there's 2 answers. One is in the last 6 months, and we'll be back to you at our, I believe, our next trust meeting, or if not, the October meeting, with our annual business retention and expansion report to tell you what the companies that are located here in Oklahoma City are saying. The first 6 months of the city's fiscal year, still talking a lot about the recession in the last 6 months, January through June. Now they're starting to worry about workforce and finding workforce as our unemployment rates have gone down. This is very cyclical. So I think there's 2 pieces. One is, do we have the right training programs, et cetera, in Oklahoma to address existing workforce and training potential new workforce? Second, which is more about recruiting talent in, our major employers are telling us that it is easier today, it is easier than it has ever been to find talent to come here. They believe for 2 reasons. One, we actually have jobs here, and a lot of those are good-paying jobs, and much of the country doesn't have those. Number 2, we have so much more to sell and show as far as a place to relocate to, whether we're talking to our research park where they're trying to bring in researchers or our institutions of higher education that are looking for professors, et cetera, they're all having much more success today than they ever have before. I know unsolicited, many of them are talking about abetterlifeokc.com, which was the relocation website that we crafted it specifically for Boeing, but because we'd always wanted a relocation website, it has had great impact for our companies locally. We are working with some of our companies locally that are going after some very high-profile folks. The piece that we don't know, and time will tell, we don't know if we're talking more of those entry-level wage jobs, how successful it is to relocate people on that, because number one, the companies probably won't pay those folks to relocate. They're going to have to do it on their own dime. And number two, the pay is a little bit lower. So that's a little bit harder for us to judge right now. Does that answer?
Are there any questions? Yeah, Larry.
Robin, I don't know whether you can comment on this or not, but since you all brought it up with this report here on the Crossroads, to a non-genius, Crossroads seems to be an Achilles heel in our area. What is the strategy? What is the plan? What can you share about Crossroads as far as what's going on?
I'm going to defer that to Allison.
Crossroads is actually under contract for sale, and the closing's been delayed and delayed and delayed. I checked again this morning, and it looks like it will close at the end of this week. The intended buyer has said that they would like to try to revitalize it as a retail center, so we'll see how much success they have with that.
So then if we revitalize it as a retail center, it seems like we've got to put them back on the list right here.
We do, and I think we'll wait and see how much success they have in recruiting retail. They're going to need to fill a couple of big anchor stores first and get some momentum going. And I think that what I've heard from the local people, Price Edwards and Company is one of the companies here locally that tracks our retail vacancy. And what I've heard from them is they are also going to wait and see. They do their report twice a year, and they're going to wait and see in December whether or not they include that in their year-end report, whether or not it's a viable retail product or not.
Are there additional questions? Robin, a criticism we get occasionally is that we focus entirely on new businesses, bringing people in, and that obviously is a real important part of our effort. But you mentioned in your presentation that you've made 333 calls, I think, on existing businesses. Would you expand just a little bit on the nature of those calls?
You bet. We have 2 full-time staff that do nothing but work with existing companies. One is more of a manufacturing, warehouse, logistics focus. The other, much more white-collar office, headquarters firms, tech-based companies, et cetera. And in addition to those 2 full-time people, we also have some content specialists. We have one gentleman that focuses on aerospace, whether it's recruitment or retention and expansion. And I would tell you that we build those relationships over time. We have a confidential database so the companies know that if they share information, while we aggregate those statistics so we can kind of tell you what the trends are out there, we will not share specifics about what they share with us. And during those meetings, which are at a minimum of an hour, we talk about workforce, we talk about infrastructure, we talk about permitting, we talk about incentives, we talk about environmental issues. It is really all things that a company needs to cover. And again, it's very cyclical what the hot topics are. It may be the quality of our public schools is a burning issue for certain industry segments where another industry segment really wants to talk about workers' compensation reform. Probably the number one issue we still hear out there is workers' compensation reform because the companies feel that they're still not seeing a positive impact on their bottom line, even though there have been some legislative changes that will take some time to catch up with them. But also, to Mr. McPherson's point, right now a lot of it is workforce and workforce availability. We bring in partners, we bring in your Public Works Department, if there's a specific issue there that we can have them help address. We'll bring in career tech. And those are ongoing relationships. We meet with all of our companies a minimum of once a year. Sometimes it's 6 or 7 visits because there's an issue that we're working for them and we're providing technical assistance. We do that as a team. We bring in the right people to work those issues with and for them. And we're always looking for companies that we're not meeting with to try and find those companies. Those are primary job providers. Allison focuses on the retail sector, so that's not where we spend our time. We really spend time with the primary jobs where those companies are providing most of the goods and services out of the area, which is bringing new money into into this base. So that would include most of your traditional manufacturing jobs, headquarters companies, et cetera. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, it's a great explanation. I think, I hope a lot of the doubters are listening to that, and it gives us some information to reply for a question. You mentioned new jobs, 5,780.
That would be a mix of recruitment as well as retention and expansion. So that's total jobs.
Total jobs, okay. Do you have any feel at all, for instance, as how they divide?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a feel for how that number divides between?
Not off the top of my head. Traditionally, roughly 80% are going to be retention and expansion. That's jobs created by our existing companies, which is why it's so important to do business retention and expansion. But I can get that number for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Robin, Allison, thank you very much. And I want to comment, Allison was out at the Outlet Mall the day they cut the ribbon, and she was already shopping. So single-handedly, she's going to make retail a success if nobody else shops in it. Thank you.
One other comment. I compliment you on the information that you're providing in these. These are really professional, first class.
Okay, item G on our agenda is another report, a status report of comprehensive economic development strategy. And who will make that presentation?
John Johnson with ACOG is here to talk about the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy grant that we have with that we provided some of the match for with the EDA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and trustees. We appreciate the opportunity to be on the agenda. As you may remember, we were here in May to solicit your partnership in this adventure to become designated as an economic development district under EDA. As you may recall, EDA is under the umbrella of the U.S. Department of Commerce, and their mission, as they state, is to promote innovation and competitiveness and to prepare American regions for growth and success. I would submit that we are well on the path of growth and success. And I don't want to speak a curse upon the region by saying those words, but we're pretty proud also of Central Oklahoma and certainly the city of Oklahoma City. We've outlined sort of the four-step process, and to tell you where we are, we feel like we're 3/4 of the way there, but the largest and the big step that remains is to develop that acronym called the CEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. And for that task, we've engaged, or about to engage, a consultant from Austin, Texas, to walk us through that exercise so that we can make all the check marks necessary to submit to EDA to qualify as a district. I think for the region, that's going to mean good news for Oklahoma City and good news for the entire region, which is the four-county area of Logan, Oklahoma, Cleveland, and Canadian. So we have some pretty sizable suburbs surrounding the city of Oklahoma City. That'll be beneficial to our members, who often are not as well positioned as the city of Oklahoma City to fund certain types of projects. From the EDA's perspective, it may not be important necessarily to this trust, but the councils of government in Oklahoma, there are 11 of them, so we have 10 brothers and sisters. Their history is they sort of began as economic development districts. For whatever reason, Central Oklahoma did not join in that group. And it's important to the EDA that the entire state of Oklahoma be an economic development district. So we've been encouraged by EDA to seek this path. And with funding in part from this trust, we'll be able to do that. Also, to be designated as an economic development district is often very important in the federal grant process. As you probably know, local government is often seeking applications from the federal government, and it's an important mark to be able to say that I'm in a region that's been designated as an economic development district. So for that reason alone, it's probably worth the effort. But we're hopeful that we'll be in line to secure more grant funds. EDA is principally a grant organization, although they do have loan programs. So what is the CEDS? Lots of acronyms in government. This one is regional. Oklahoma City has previously had CEDS for the city of Oklahoma City, but not for the entire region. It's a look a little more comprehensively around the four-county area to see if there might be other corridors where we could have development that would benefit not only that geography, but certainly the city of Oklahoma City. It's a way for us to have ongoing data analysis. Once we are designated, we'll receive a planning grant to engage a planner to look at the SEDS on an annual basis for updates. So it will become a living, organic document that we can all use. And hopefully it's going to be of assistance, not necessarily to direct or guide or have authority, but to coordinate economic development process in central Oklahoma, so we all know what we're about. It's a very competitive business. There are a lot of experts here on the ground, and ACOG is not about getting in front of those folks. Our focus is going to be infrastructure, where we need infrastructure and what we need. And hopefully we can develop inventories to be able to rank and have folks be able to prioritize what projects need to be submitted to EDA. Now, the Economic Development District is governed by a policy board and a technical committee, so things will be processed through there. So what's in it for Oklahoma City? Well, we hope that it can provide an opportunity for Oklahoma City to also become a more comprehensive partner in a regional look at economic development. Certainly the Greater Chamber of Oklahoma City does that in the 10-county area, but we're hopeful that local governments can begin to have some input into that process, and this vehicle will provide an opportunity to do that. Again, we believe that not only Oklahoma City, but all of our members will have greater access to federal economic development grants, which will help the growth and success of the region. So we believe that this genuinely will open doors to federal funding that Oklahoma City may not now have full access to. We're not here to tell you that we're going to be some gateway or golden goose for those opportunities, but they should enhance opportunities for Oklahoma City. And that's why we think it's important that you are our partner. So the timeline, where are we? I am currently in contract discussion with our consultant, who is out of Austin, Texas. As you may imagine, when you have regional federal offices, which for EDA and our region is in Austin, you also get the cluster of consultants right around those offices. So most of the really good people who do this work are in Austin, Texas. And we've engaged a group that we think is going to do a very good job for us, but we want it in a bigger hurry than they want to do it. So that's what the contract negotiation is. They think they want until May, but we want March. So that's not too much to ask, I don't think. The reason is we would like to submit our final application before May of 2012. The reasoning is there will be a conference in Oklahoma City, the Southwest region of the Economic Development Association, which is all of those 6 states, those economic developers coming to Oklahoma City, along with EDA and personnel from economic development districts to talk about the year and what's upcoming. And Pedro Garza, who is the regional director, will be here for that. I think it's perfect timing for him to stand up and say that Central Oklahoma is going to be an economic development district. Now, I don't know that that's going to happen, but the coincidence of the timing is really good for us. So we hope we can have what we need to have finished before that conference would occur. And again, after the SEDS is approved by the regional EDA, then it goes to headquarters, and hopefully we'll come back with the positive answer that Central Oklahoma has been designated an economic development district. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the process or the purpose.
Are there questions?
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On your economic development district, is there anything the city needs to do to help that plan along?
They will, and they have agreed to do so. They'll be providing a lot of data and information that they have about infrastructure to us to put in this SEDS, and they have certainly agreed to cooperate.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda are comments from the staff, comments from our trustees, comments from the public. Hearing none, we are adjourned.